Welcome back, everyone. How are we all feeling after having lunch? We have some energy again. So welcome back to the Women Up Summit 2019. We're back after lunch. As some of you have been asking me, I'm Sugandha Sharma, and I'm your host for this event and for the rest of the hours. We've had some amazing sessions yesterday and today before lunch. So let's continue these amazing, inspiring sessions with a big round of applause. एंड आप सब लोगों के लिए तालियां जो सब लंच के बाद इस रूम में मौजूद हैं अपन सब लोगों के लिए जोरदार एक और बार तालियां So let's now have Durga in the boardroom. Yes, I'm right. I'm inviting Durga in the boardroom. That is the name of the next session. Durga in the boardroom. Here we have Eika Banerjee on how women are already in a very pretty place to step into a leadership role, and that all that is left to do is to stop listening to any excuses made on their behalf, made to them, or made by them. Eika Banerjee is the CEO of Future Learning. Eika has a keen interest in women's issues and diversity agenda, and regularly draws on India's age-old wisdom to address the problems of today and the future through her unique pedagogy. Thank you. Let's invite her with a big round of applause.
The mic on, no? Yeah, okay, perfect, thanks. Hi, good afternoon. Post-lunch sessions are never easy. And I'm just so tempted right now to ask you, get up, stretch, put your hands out, loud round of applause. So, well, we'll start. The only request I have is that beech mein taali bajate rahiyega. And this is out of concern for your health, because of course as you clap, A, it tells me that you're listening, you're attentive, etc. But B, it's very good for your health. So you must know this, that every nerve in your body ends either in your 10 toes or fingers or your 10 toes. So when you clap, you activate your entire body. So it's really in your interest and not mine. But welcome board. And I know the title of the session has been an intriguing one, Durga in the boardroom. Between yesterday and today, there's been a lot of conversation about the Indian woman, about women at large, about women at the workplace, women in the development sector, women in various places. And I must tell you what my trigger was. It's about 10 years ago, and I will not tell you how old I am, because I can see very nice schoolgirls in front of me. But about 10 years ago, somebody walked up to me once, and this was a foreign national, a fairly senior leader in a global organization. And he asked me, he said, Eika, what I find very funny about India. I said, well, there are lots of things to find funny about India. Which one's yours? And he said, Eika, it's strange that I can't reconcile gender differences in your country. I said, really, what's that supposed to mean? He said, think about it. At one end, we have gender discrimination, gender violence, and this was around the time that the Nirbhaya incident had happened. So India really was out there in the media, even within us, we were angry, we were seething about gender violence. And he said, so there is gender violence, gender discrimination, the parda, the ghungat, women being kept inside houses at one end, and at the other end, you guys have always had women leaders, be it in politics, be it in your business families. So how does the two get reconciled? And I thought that was a very interesting start point. And to me, the reason it was an interesting start point was also because I realized that this is not just in politics. The fact is that in India, we celebrate femininity. We celebrate divinity. We celebrate our women. We have the world's longest feminine divinity festival, which is the Durga Puja. There is no other country in the world that celebrates womanhood as we do. And yet, we struggle with gender discrimination and violence at the other end. And so that led me into finding out, कि भाई answer कहाँ है? Where am I supposed to look for these answers? Clearly, there's something that's very unique about us that doesn't reconcile with the rest of the world. Right? Let's look at other countries. So when a Hillary Clinton and a Donald Trump are standing up against elections. And I remember having this conversation just a few days before the elections. And I said, look, Hillary Clinton cannot make president of the US. Because, why do you think she can't? Because they've just had one black male president for the first time ever in their history. It's really too soon to also give a woman president. So as human beings, when we are born with just 3 markers of individual identity: age, race, and gender. When a child is born, they can tell a difference between an old person and a young person, a black from a white, from a pink to a yellow to a brown person, and the difference between a man and woman. Now, why this is interesting is because as we've grown through our civilizations, as societies have evolved, some of them have broken some of these markers. Every other difference, by the way, besides age, race, and gender, is man-made, is nurtured, is acquired. None of it is what you're born with. Interestingly, the only fear you're born with, take a guess. Take a guess. There's only one fear that human beings are born with. Sorry, who said what? You have to be louder, you have to get to me. Death? You can't be born with the fear of death. When you're born as a child, when you know nothing, what's most biological? Fear thodi na hai, hunger to desire hai. That's the mother's fear, not the child's fear. Sorry? A feeling lonely? Not at a child level. No, not cold, not darkness, not hunger. No, not height, not failure. As a child, when you're born. Of change, no. Separation, no. No, hungry, no. Protection, you're almost there, but no. Left alone, no. Survival to pata hi nahi hai yaar. It's a brand new world. They've emerged from a world of water into the world of the earth. They've just learning to breathe. Every day is a new experience. What's the only fear we are born with? The only one fear that we are born with, biologically, is the fear of falling. The only one fear you're born with is the fear of falling. So if you've ever seen a little child moving towards the edge of the bed, they'll cling on to that edge of the bed. Never mind that it's just a gadda height and they can't fall further. But they will cling on to the edge of the gadda. So as biologically, as human beings, as Homo sapiens, there's one fear we are born with, which is the fear of falling. And there are only 3 biological markers we are born with that differentiate one human being from the other: age, race, and gender. Now what happens is, as we've grown through societal civilizations, evolved new laws, countries, political boundaries, governments, whatever you call them, there are some societies that are still struggling with age as a marker. So the society in Japan, the society in Germany, they're still struggling with age. As Indians, because it's 5,000 years of heterogeneous, continuous civilization, we have no conflicts about age. We are very well reconciled to the fact that आदमी पैदा होता है, बड़ा होता है, बूढ़ा होता है, मर जाता है, दोबारा पैदा हो जाएगा. So there is age is to be respected, age is to be nurtured, age is to be experienced, age is to be learnt upon. There's no conflict on age. And there are these societies like Japan and Germany where you hear a lot of age conflict. People resent the fact that why should older people be a burden on the society, get more money, etc., etc. So that's age as a marker. Then there are countries that have a problem with race as a marker. So most of Europe, most of US, everywhere, right? We've all been hearing about issues of racial discrimination. The whole Brexit, for God's sake, is about immigration, racial migration, us versus them. They are not like us, the color of skin, a whole lot of issues. In India, frankly, we have no concept of race. Right? In 5,000 years of civilization, we are so heterogeneous, so mixed, that we have no racial identities. So I'm a Bengali, I'm married to a Bengali. I am a UP Brahmin by birth. My ancestors about 800 ago were Persian or Iranian, and that's where most of my family gets green eyes and fair skin from. My children are Banerjee, but my husband's family is migrated from West Bengal some centuries ago. They can't speak a word of Bengali. We don't speak Bengali at home. There is no racial identity. So today if I ask my kids, look, what is your race? There's no answer. How many of you think that you have a racial identity? Indians. How do you think, right? So in India we've lost the concept of race also. Whereas there are large economies and large countries in the world that are still dealing with race as a issue. Therefore, the last marker that we struggle with in India is gender. Very often, when you write about somebody's description, you will say, he is an old white man, or she is a black American woman, etc. You know, you can carry on with it. But think about who you would write for yourselves as Indians. Age, we don't even consider age because we've assumed that that's who you are, that's where it is. We don't have racial identities. So the only thing I'm left to identify with is gender. And therefore it becomes deeply personal to all of us and becomes an issue of identity. Now this is one construct. The other is what's beyond gender. So what will happen if there is this perfect, brilliant world where we've overcome our gender identities? What do we become? What happens to us? What happens to us? I wish I had some chocolates, and I would have actually rewarded you with chocolates for every answer. But what do you think happens if there is no gender? So age is gone as a biological marker. Race is gone. By the way, our substitute for race as a marker is caste, is regions, is religions. So all those, but those are nurture. None of them are biological. So what happens when gender goes off? Then what happens? Who are you? We become? Can I have a round of applause for that one? We are not man and woman, but we become humans. So who is a human? What do you think this is? Concentric circles. No, that's a good answer. What else? Sorry? Venn diagram. Very good. What else? The universe. That's a very good answer. Applause, applause there. Applause. Yes. What else? Teachers in the room. Psychologists in the room. Non-vegetarians in the room. This is an egg on a plate. No. What else? Biologists in the room. This is how? Layers of earth. That's a good one. It's the world, yes. It is the earth. It's our soul. Can I have a loud round of applause there? So here's how this is. So I always find my answers, by the way, in ancient Indian scriptures, Veda, Purana and Upanishad. I think they're so brilliant and elegant with every answer on the planet. So this is the human self, by the way. But why it's interesting is because this is the structure of the universe. It is the structure of the earth. It is the structure of the eye. It is concentric circles. This is how the earth looks like. And you know, the Vedas actually tell you that. They say that if you can study the smallest part of the cosmos, you've got the answer to the entire puzzle. So for our purposes, this will be the human mind. Various names have been given to it. Freud called it id, ego and superego. Jung came in, Jung called it persona, shadow and archetypes. Management scientists call this conscious, subconscious, and unconscious. Neuroscientists call this, no, management scientists, sorry, call this behavior, attitude, and values. So this is how we are as people, right? All of us are familiar with these words? Very good. So now I have a question for you. So very simply put, this is why we are. This is what we are. And this is how we are. So I have a question. If this is who we are, why we are, how we are, तो ये जो हमारा persona है, जो हमारे behaviors हैं, how we appear to the outside world, etc., what is this a function of? How is it determined? Quickly. Of your mind. So mind is in. So there are two ways that the persona can be determined. Behavior can be determined. Either inward out or outward in. Correct? And we'll come to this. So give me some factors that determine your personality or your behaviors. Social surroundings, outward in, upbringing, situations matlab, external circumstances. Okay, what else? Biological age. Our DNA, our genes. Okay, gene is inward out. Attitude is inward out. Education is outward in. वो तो हो गया, body हो गया. People we interact with, external. Experiences, external. Skills. Skills. Skills क्या होती है भाई? चलो, skills. So here's the question. And I want you to raise your hands. Everybody needs to raise a hand at one side of the question. If your persona, your conscious behaviors, how you appear to the world, can either be determined by external factors or by internal factors, what should ideally be the case? There are three possibilities. So the first possibility is inward out. जो मैं अंदर से हूँ, वो मैं बाहर से हूँ. The second possibility is outward in. And the third possibility is mix of both. Let's not say balance, but a mix of both. How many people say that in our ideal world we should be inward out? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. You just raised your hand, no? 18. You raised it earlier? No, 19. Okay, 20. 24 inward out. How many people say we should be outward in? 1. क्या बात कर रहे हो? जो पढ़ाया, लिखाया, जो experiences हुए, वैसे नहीं होते हम. Outward in, raise your hands. Come on, your money where your mouth is. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 or nobody else is supporting them. 7, 8. I like it how grudgingly somebody else put up your hand for you. 7. How many people think say it's a mix of both? मतलब कुछ हम raised होते हैं और कुछ हमें बताया जाता है. That's a lot of hands. Oh, I'm just going to say many. So many. How many people who studied class 10 physics here? All of you are class 12 students. Please raise your hands. Class 10 physics, how many people remember the class 10 physics? Every hand went down. Okay, what's resonance? What's resonance? Wow, applause, applause, applause. Resonance happens when two things come together. such that the whole is greater than sum of parts. Now you remember? Yeah? Now think about it. If you have to be your best self, and physics, by the way, also tells me that the moment two frequencies that are different from each other come in contact with each other, there is bound to be some friction at the point of intersection, right? Now the moment there's friction, you will lose some energy there for sure. Correct? So anytime you're responding to an outside stimulus, you will never be your best 100% because some energy will go in that resistance. Resonance only happens when you're inward out. Anybody who wants to change their numbers? Any more people who want to add to the first one? Shift? Not yet? Very good. So now let's illustrate this. There's a boy who's 23 years old. Boy, I'm not using girl here right now. I'll come back to this. But there's a boy who's 23 years old. And his father tells him, beta tu lawyer ban ja. So he goes and he becomes a lawyer. Now will he be the best lawyer that he's possible? How many people say that? Why there's nobody who's saying it depends? Yeah, it depends. Depends on what? So again, three situations. One is boy wants to become lawyer. He wants to become a lawyer. The other situation is I don't want to be lawyer. And the third situation is I want to be a musician. ठीक है? बाहर से प्रेशर आया, बेटा लॉयर बन जा. What happens in the first situation? Is it possible that he becomes like the best, most kick-ass lawyer in India? If he wants to be a lawyer. So, lawyer from inside, lawyer from outside, he's brilliant. He says, I don't want to be lawyer. Father says, beta, you become lawyer. What happens? But then he would have wanted to be lawyer. Will he be the best ever lawyer? He'll be a very reluctant lawyer. Can I have a round of applause for this? As long as he's a reluctant lawyer, he will not be the best lawyer. In resentment, being the victim. What about the third one? So by the way, the second one will be the lawyer who will blame the system, who will say कि मेरा system corrupt है, Supreme Court के judge ऐसे हैं, सब partiality होती है, ये है, वो है, so that kind of a lawyer. What happens to the third one? The guy who wants to become a musician, but father says कि बेटा music में पैसा नहीं है, you will not be successful, you become a lawyer. What happens? He won't be a good lawyer. That's for sure. He will not become Ram Jethmalani. For sure. But what happens to him? How do you see his life playing out? Sorry? He'll regret it. He will be a victim. He will blame his father. He will resent his father. He will transfer that resistance to his wife. कि मतलब मुझे तो music करना था, आपने मुझे law कराया, आपकी गलती है. And you see the pattern then plays out? He will have unhappy clients, he will have an unhappy wife, he will have unhappy children. Because all his life, this was saying music, and this said law. So what's the moral of the story? Is there anybody else who wants to change their numbers now? How many people say you can only be the best version of yourself if you're inside out, inward out? That's it. No more people saying that. Let's drive this point home further. How many people follow tennis in whatever form? Tennis? So Andre Agassi versus Roger Federer. What's the difference? So who's the god? Who's the god? Arey, be loud. Who's the god of tennis? Roger Federer? Andre Agassi was the world champion for the longest time. Why is he not God? And you can sense it. So intuitively you know, despite the fact that Andre Agassi was phenomenal and great, he's not the god of tennis. Federer is. Why? Round of applause. Andre Agassi did not want to play tennis at all. He resented, and by the way, look at the immense amount of talent. Clearly, he was the world champion. But however big he became, he didn't become God. Federer, on the other hand, is all tennis. Michael Phelps, A.R. Rahman, Sachin Tendulkar. Look at anybody who's at the top of their field. You only get to the top of the field if every fiber, every being inside you wants to get to the top of the field. It doesn't matter whether you're a man or a woman. It doesn't matter what race you are. It doesn't matter what age you are. Do you know what age Boman Irani? Everybody here knows Boman Irani? Do you know at what age he started acting? Think about it. So age doesn't matter. Race doesn't matter. Gender doesn't matter. When you are inward out. And that's the only way to live. To validate this, by the way, I went back to my Veda and Puran. And why it was so fascinating is because in the Veda Puran, this is called the Sharira. The outermost body is the Sharira. This is called the Brahma. And this is the Atma. My class 10th physics tells me that when the world got created, there were only two quantities that generated, which were physics, class 10th? No, when the world got created, only two quantities. Who said that? Applause, applause, applause. Matter and energy. Your body is pure matter. How does the Bhagavad Gita describe the Atma? Formless, shapeless, genderless, ageless. What's the only other quantity that's like that? Energy. So this is pure energy and this is pure matter. It's where you come together that you have a problem. Now if we've established, and this is the last thing that we'll do, that you are your best self only if you're inward out. Common sense? Agreed? Then why aren't we? Be loud. Why aren't we? And it's important. Why aren't we our best selves? Who molds you? What do you
Because
allow?
we are not happy.
Because we are not happy. Applause for that one. What are we not happy about? Ourselves. What is our unhappiness? So think about it. This is pure activity. The body doesn't decide anything on its own. It does what it is told to do. Correct? The Atma is pure energy. कोई challenge ही नहीं है. It is your core, it is your passion, it is who you are. So then why doesn't this become this? Yeah? Yes, so this is yourself. This is yourself. I know it's looking very messy, but this is yourself. This is actually who you are. But here, you aren't. Here you are diseased, either in body or in mind or in soul or spirit, whatever it may be, in your emotions, whatever it is. Why? Because of the markers, age, race and gender, वो तो चले गए, खत्म हो गए markers. Now this is just you. Why aren't you your best self? Yes, sir.
It's the fear, ma'am.
It's the fear.
Fear.
Applause, applause, applause. So where's the fear? Fear कहाँ है इसमें? Very good. Applause. This is where our fears are. This is where our shadows are. This is where our insecurity is. And that is what we need to get rid of. Where do these fears come from? Why do they come? Very good. So here's a very good one, and I like the answer because I have young kids here. These fears start forming in your adolescence. When you're a child, you are a reflection of your parents. So completely outward in, it doesn't matter because this doesn't exist. It's when you're in your adolescence that the self starts emerging. मैं कौन हूँ, मैं क्या हूँ, मुझे क्या पसंद है, what do I want to eat, sleep, drink, do, passion, whatever it is. And at the same time, your external influences are not going away. Your parents are still saying, career ले लो, ये पढ़ लो, दूसरे को hurt मत करो, उसको बुरा ना लग जाए, whether this boy likes me or not. There are so many of those external ones. This process continues till you're 25. Not till you're 19, but till you're 25. Which is when your pineal gland sets. So at 25, the shadows settle for life. Whatever fears, insecurities, judgments, greed, ambition, jealousy, brutality, ruthlessness, selfishness, these are all your shadows. You then get to keep them for life. And therefore it becomes very tricky to be a mother of or a parents to adolescents. So if you have to overcome your fears or your shadows, go back to your teenage. But more importantly, till you step into your passions, you can't become your best self. And once you're inward out, the outside environment does not matter. Look at, and take anybody's example, including your Fogart sisters, who come from an extremely regressive patriarchal society. Take anybody, then it doesn't matter. So if I go back to my lawyer example, this boy is fine because he wants to be a lawyer and becomes a lawyer. The musician will live in resentment. Why doesn't the musician argue with his father कि मुझे musician बनना है? But why? मतलब, what is this? So fear of his father is one part of it. What's the alternative? What's the alternative?
Fear of failure.
Fear of failure. Agreed. What else? What's the alternative? So he's doing it because he's fearful, society, paisa, success, all of that. But what's the alternative? So he could have continued music along with studying law. उसका consequence क्या है? क्यों नहीं करते? Okay. So why do we lack that faith? That's my question. What's the alternative? What's the risk? अगर वो अपने पिताजी से पलट के कह दे कि Dad, you know, I really don't want to do law. I really want to do music. What's the risk? Well done. Can I have a round of applause? The problem is that then he cannot blame his father. Then you have to take responsibility for your own actions and consequences. And then it doesn't matter what age, what race, what gender you are. Then you're only about your passions. Right? So I would like to end this with three things that we've spoken of. One is that in India, we exceptionally hold on to our gender identity as human beings because that is all we have to hold on to. The second is that we are a product of years and years of civilization, and our fears, our insecurities are what limit us. And the third, that once you've stepped into your passions, found your passions, A, you are the best version of your own self. B, your external circumstances and limitations don't matter at all. And C, that is when you shine with your most resonant, most brilliant self. Don't assume your limitations. Thank you. Questions? हमारे यहाँ दो महावाक्य कहलाते हैं उपनिषद में, which are two of my personal favorites. One says tatatvam asi, that which you are, and the second is aham brahmasmi, I am the infinite divine universe. If I can take control of myself, it doesn't matter who, what, where, when else the outside world is. And that's what I'd encourage every woman in India to do. We already have examples. I'm not even going to go into heads of state, heads of businesses. There's Mugdha sitting here, who's an IAS officer. There's Viji sitting here, and she runs a fabulous cancer foundation. There are enough. I have my sister sitting here, and she raises 2 Durgas in her own household. So there is no limitation. Gender is in the mind. Once you've broken through this, शरीर का कोई concept ही नहीं है यार. Physical concept है ही नहीं. So step into yourself, step into your brilliant, brilliant, brilliant resonance. That's all I have to say. Thank you. Are there any questions? Do I have time for one question, 2 questions?
Hi, ma'am.
Yes.
You said that we'll always be the best when we are inward outside. I want to understand from you, how can one overcome the fear or the insecurities that we carry, probably with the life's experiences that we have been through?
Fabulous, and I really like that question. It's a process, right? So the human mind, the human existence has always been obsessed with the elixir of youth, with immortality. The fact is they all exist. But ये ना एक दवाई नहीं है, गोली नहीं है. It's a process, right? So scientifically and logically, there are 2 ways to do this. To be your most resonant self. One is to dhire, 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 dhire work at each of your fears, shadow, insecurities till you reach your core. The other is that immerse yourself in your passion so deeply and pursue that to the extent that it becomes an obsession, so much so that this core, which is pure bright light and energy, actually explodes inside you. So there are 2 ways of doing this. One is work through your fears, address them when they happen, mark when you're angry, mark when you're irritable, and you'll find each of them will lead back to a fear or an insecurity. So that's one way to do this. And the other way to do this is just do what you want. Literally do exactly what you want in this moment, here and now. And explode into your passions, which is so loud and wise that it explodes into resonance. And it's a process. But the other end of this process is just brilliance. Trust me on that. Yeah, I have a very, embarrassing confession at this one. I should have had a book that should have come out 3 years ago, but I promise to have a book out in 6 months now from here. Inshallah. Any other questions? Are we good then? Yes, madam.
Thank you. That was a very interesting talk. One bit I would like to clarify or understand better is when you say that at age 25, whatever fears you carry stay with you and you cannot get rid of them.
Yeah.
I find that our entire human life is a set of experiences to evolve at any age. So what are your comments on that?
So, and let me clarify this. I think this is a good point to clarify. They originate in your adolescence. So even as a child, you don't remember your fears. They are experiences that you remember, but they get solidified as a fear only in your adolescence. So you will find that in your adult life, some patterns get played out over and over again. That of maybe disappointment, triggers that get you angry, triggers that make you sad, things you're dying to prove to the world. Your fear of your father translates to your fear of your husband, approval seeking. Every one of these behaviors that upset you, disturb you, hold you back, form a limiting belief, go back to some conflict that you had in your adolescence. So that's where I meant, because the mind emerges, the ego emerges then, the identity emerges then. So you'll find your roots there. Passions, however, by the way, if you want to go back to your passions, go back either to your childhood or to your happiest places. You'll find your passions there, whatever made you the happiest. So that's how the 2 of them work. So thank you so much. Yes, madam. Very good, Aditi. And I want to throw this question out there. So Aditi is saying, Aditi's question is, what does one do? That what does my musician do when his family absolutely detests him being a musician and he really wants to be a musician and they insist he's a lawyer? What do they do? Go on? So go on with music? Okay. So how many people say that he should go on with music? Risk क्या है उसमें? Risk उसमें ये है कि अपने पिताजी को पलट के तुम बोलो कि Dad, I take responsibility for myself. So the fact is that I want to do music so badly that I'm okay if I don't make money. Supposing I have no talent for music, which I actually don't, by the way, but I insist on doing music. At some point of time, I will realize that I have no talent. If I'm happy with the talent that I have, then it's my life. No? Then I have to get rid of my fear कि मुझे पैसा नहीं चाहिए, मुझे security नहीं चाहिए. I'm okay if I don't make lots of money and have a secure, stable career. I have to take responsibility for myself. Your battle is not your father or your family. Your battle is whether you're willing to stand up for your own passion. If we don't stand up for our passions, we end up with very mediocre existences. So our second guy here, the one who didn't want to be a lawyer, but also didn't know what I wanted to do. So मुझे lawyer नहीं बनना है, but मुझे क्या करना है मुझे नहीं पता है. Continues to lead a very mediocre existence. That's not brilliance. So the risk if we don't follow this and don't step into our brilliance is, of course, we'll continue to lead our lives, but they'll be our lives of mediocrity, compromised existences, resentments, guilts, fears, and somewhere we will project them into our immediate environment as well. Yeah? Yes, madam, last one, absolute last one. What's your name? Thanks, Nikita. Nikita was asking whether I realized that I lead an inward-out life and how did I get there. I spent 20 years from the age of 13 to 33 in anger, in denial, in resistance, being very angry with the world, doing an MBA because it was the easiest shortcut to success, being a banker, so I was a banker for 12 years, and throughout my banking years, by the way, so I was a good banker because I was a hard worker, but I would blame the corporate world, I would blame my bosses, partiality, scream, shout, rant, hate the product. I would crib, cry, whine, complain all the time. I was doing reasonably well, जिसको हम Hindu rate of growth बोलते हैं ना, but reasonably well, nothing very brilliant, nothing very exceptional. About 10 years ago is where there were life circumstances, including one road accident, including tremendous sickness, including losing some very dear ones, where this transition happened and I stepped into myself. That's when I realized that I was made to study mythology, get into leadership, coaching. I withstood a lot of pressure from my near and dear well-wishers who said, yaar, tum private banking ka career chhod rahi ho, isme paisa hai, security hai, you're a good banker, what are you trying to do? I didn't have articulation for it. But somewhere in that journey, I know that I was only doing what I wanted to do. What's interesting, Nikita, is that from a sheer pure parity and badge perspective, while I would have never made CEO of any bank and resented it and blamed the world for it, the moment I stepped into my own self, within 2 years, I actually made the first CEO in my MBA batch, man or woman, because that's not what I was seeking. So that's how I know I'm inward out. When you don't lose your temper, that's the first one. When you don't get irritated, you don't lose your temper. That's usually an indicator that you're inward out. It's still a journey, it's a lifelong journey, but I'm having fun with it. Thank you so much. Really, Neetaji, thank you so much for having me over. This has been great fun. Thank you.
Wow, thank you, Eika, and a big round of applause for her. You took us back to basics and made us learn from it. So, आपके कुछ बोलने से मुझे कुछ sentences याद आए हैं, कुछ वाक्य ध्यान आए हैं. Eika, this is for you. You reminded me of this. These are one of my favorites. So here it goes. जंगल जंगल ढूंढ रहा है मृग अपनी कस्तूरी. जंगल जंगल ढूंढ रहा है मृग अपनी कस्तूरी. कितना मुश्किल है तय करना खुद से खुद की दूरी. अंदर शून्य बाहर शून्य शून्य चारों ओर है. मैं नहीं हूं मुझ में फिर भी मैं का ही शोर है.